Hello, what's up? Welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. Today's episode is hopefully going to be kind of brief and short, but applicable and of a lot of value. And I think it will be because I feel like a lot of people struggle with what I'm about to share. And it's things that if I ask someone or on my Facebook page or whatever, like, what do you struggle with most around your nutrition? It kind of shows up for a lot of people. And it's somewhere along the lines of, I feel like I stress eat, or I just want to stop the cravings, or I want to find something to replace my chocolate, or I know what I need to eat. I should eat my vegetables and good protein. Like, I know all the things I should eat, but I just can't get myself to do it sometimes. Or it's things like I can't get myself to not eat the chips, the cookies, the beer, like the wine. It's things that I want to eat, but isn't necessarily serving my body. So my mindset around this has changed over the years. And I'm definitely going to do an episode on things that I've changed my mindset on and my perspective on when it comes to fitness and nutrition. It'd be kind of cool to reflect back on that. But anyways, I'm going to share with you kind of a mindset shift, and then also things that you can do to apply this within your nutrition. So first off, I want you to focus on the more mentality, the add mentality, not the restrict mentality, not the thinking of I need to eat less of this, or I need to stop eating this, or I need to replace this. And instead think of what can you add into, what can you eat more of that is going to serve your body nutritionally and also your mind. Like, kind of when I used to have a lot of sugar, like I would want sweets, and I would have a big sweet tooth. I love cookies and brownies and bars and all the things. So freaking good. And when I switched my mentality to the add, not restrict, and when I allowed myself to have the food that I was wanting whenever I wanted, here's the thing, here's the kicker. I told myself, I maybe not told myself, but I allowed myself, and I guess told myself, that I am going to eat whatever I want, whatever foods that I am wanting. Like, if I want that cookie, if I want some ice cream, I'm going to allow myself to have that. And what happened was I actually ate less of those things overall. And in time, I really don't want those things at all, ever. It's crazy. And this is my own experience. Maybe this is not true for some other people, but this is my experience. And it really, really helped me to break that yo-yo dieting mentality, the all or nothing mentality, the restrict and then binge cycle. It really, it was a slow process, but also it kind of all happened at once. So by allowing myself to have the foods that I wanted to have, even though I knew that they weren't serving me nutritionally, I actually ended up eating less of those foods and more of the foods that were going to serve me. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. In my cupboard, I would always have chocolate, like a chocolate bar, granted, I tried to get the best quality chocolate. It wasn't always like a Hershey's, but if that's your jam, yeah, maybe have that around. But for some people, out of sight, out of mind. I totally get that too. And that's a different avenue that we can go. But when I had these things, and sometimes they were a healthier, quote, healthier version of a muffin cup thing, from Birch Benders or Kodiak cakes, things like that. And I'm not saying that you have to have the healthier alternative, because you don't, but for me, that's just what I wanted. And that was what I would sometimes binge on too, even. Not all the time. And then also to go along with that, I would have, Dairy Queen whenever, not whenever, but you get the gist, hopefully. So where was I? I kind of went off track there for a second. Okay, so switching your mentality to the add more, not restrict. This is something that I applied to my clients at the gym that I used to work at a few years ago, where I just quit there last year, but I applied it throughout the last probably couple years that I was there, and I saw the impact, the positive impact that it had on people. I had one client, she was like, oh, I never thought of doing it that way. She was always in the mindset of restricting foods, or like on the weekends, she can't have the ice cream, or she's going to try and stay away from the cookies at the grill out or whatever. Like she was in a restrictive mindset. But I told her, I was like, okay, on the weekends and even on the weekdays, switch that mentality to adding more. Okay, now what do I mean by adding more? Because I keep saying that. So more fruits, vegetables, protein, carbs. So things like sweet potato, rice, like the things that are we know that the things that you tell yourself, I know what I should have. I know what I need to do. I know the foods that I need to eat. So those foods that you're thinking of, just have the mindset that you are going to eat more of those. So more of those, adding more of those versus restricting blank food, whatever those foods are for you that you are maybe in your head wanting to eat less of because you know it's not serving your body, but you still like want it. Because the more that you say you can't have that, the more that your brain is going to want to have that. And that's like a whole lot of psychology right there and like brain stuff going on. But that is a thing. Like when you restrict yourself, you say you can't have something, that's all that you're going to focus in on is that thing. And you can ask the question of like, okay, I'm wanting this cookie or those chips. We're in such a fast-paced society. We don't ever stop and slow down to like kind of reflect on things, think through things. So it's just taking a moment to ask yourself, and we never really ask ourselves in the moment, what do I need right now? What is my body telling me? What do I feel like is going to be best for me? So in those moments that you're wanting that cookie, the chips, you ask yourself and kind of tune in to how your body's feeling and your mind and ask, how will I feel after eating this? Maybe ask yourself, why am I wanting this right now? Side note, females who are in your cycle, during your cycle, there is a phase in your cycle where you are deficient in nutrients. This is going to be a whole other episode for a whole other time. But the times that you crave chocolate more so throughout the month, like if there's a specific time, like maybe it's on your period, before your period, whatever, your body is actually craving something. It's not necessarily chocolate though. It's usually magnesium. So you're deficient in magnesium and you need that. So sometimes these cravings, there's an underlying issue of like either an emotional issue going on or your body is deficient in some sort of nutrient. And so for chips, for example, maybe your body needs some sodium, some salt. So something that I do, I will sometimes have vegetables and put Himalayan sea salt. So good. You get the crunch, you get the salt. Okay, kind of going off track there again. So those are some examples. And then going back to just kind of tuning into yourself, tuning into how you're feeling, ask yourself those questions. How are you going to feel after? Is it a hell yes? Like I really want this. And I know that like if I restrict and don't eat it, I'm just going to want it more and more. Like, am I coming from the angle of I'm restricting it because I can't have it because it's bad for my body, which is not necessarily a healthy way of looking at it. It's not serving your relationship with food. So maybe like now for me, I come to the perspective of, okay, there's this cookie right here. Do I really want it? And if I say no, it's not because I tell myself I can't have it. It's because I just don't want it. And maybe I am thinking, well, I'm not really going to feel good afterwards. And I know it's not going to benefit my mind. And I'm going to first have this vegetable or fruit or, whatever it is, which actually leads me to my next point. And that's that before you have, so it's kind of more of like an applicable thing, but before you have said food, maybe the cinnamon roll, the chips, the whatever, don't make this a rule. Like we shouldn't have these food rules. But what I'm saying is maybe you choose to have a protein source, or maybe it's like a protein and a carb or a healthy fat, like just having something first, eating that first, and then you might find, oh, I'm really not hungry for that, or I really don't want that anymore. Like it kind of changes the feel of maybe like satiety, but then also you're getting like these nutritious foods in, and you just realize like, okay, I don't really want that. And maybe you do. And if you do, okay, I am going to have some of the cinnamon roll, or I'm going to have some of these chips. And maybe you just won't eat as much of those things then. So to kind of backtrack and recap those two things that I just said. So number one, instead of restricting or eating less of or replacing foods, maybe think about and switch that mentality and mindset to adding more fruits and vegetables, whether it's on just your plate for a meal or just in general throughout the day. So more fruits, more vegetables, more proteins, more carbs. So adding, what can you have more of? And maybe it's if you're wanting to like, quote, replace chocolate, instead of replacing chocolate, maybe you just get like a brand of chocolate that is higher quality, because dark chocolate is very good and it is high in magnesium, and it does just like supplements, like the quality also matters of these things, but maybe not, but maybe you just want a little bit of whatever chocolate that you love. Okay, so there's that. And actually there's three, I guess. So the add versus restrict. Number two, keeping the foods that you love, that you know that you maybe should eat less of, but you still want them. Like still keep them in the house and just let go of the mentality that you are not allowed to eat those things, or that they're bad foods, or that you have to just not eat those. So a lot of this is mentality and mindset, but thinking about that. If you're the person like you need to go out of sight, out of mind, totally do that. For me, that did not work because it was out of sight, out of mind. But when I went grocery shopping and I didn't have any sweets or anything that I truly wanted because it tasted good and because I wanted those things, and I labeled it as bad, so I didn't have it. But when I would go to the grocery store, I would then buy a box of cookies and eat the whole box, all 12 cookies in the car in a matter of 2 minutes. And I'm not exaggerating, that did happen. That is factual in my lifetime. So the out of sight, out of mind did not work for me. And then the third one here is to first consume the nutrients and the foods that, yeah, you do know that you should eat more of. So like just like what we just said, the vegetables, the proteins, the carbs, like eating those first on your plate or for your meal before you have the thing that you want. So a little bit of the chips or the cinnamon roll or the cookies, whatever it may be. And maybe you will eat less of that. Maybe you will decide that you don't even want it. And then the fourth thing here is just to take a moment to tune into your body and to how you're feeling, and taking a moment to just slow down and ask yourself, what do I really want right now? What is my body wanting? What am I needing? Do I want this food because I keep restricting it and it's quote bad for me? Or do I want this food because I really like this food and have a good relationship with food, and I want to live life a little, and I'm going to eat this. Like I'm going to have a little bit of this and be good. And you can ask yourself, how am I going to feel after I eat it? So it's kind of looking at different angles of this food, your relationship with food, how you're going to feel, all those things. And what if you just didn't label this as it being an issue? Like, what if that just that just did not exist? Like, you just do not label the fact that you know what you should eat, but you have these foods that you want to eat and they're not as healthy, and that's an issue. But what if you just don't label that as an issue at all? What if in your mindset, all food is just food? It's not labeled as good or bad. It's not labeled as I should restrict or have less of this. What if food is just food, and some are more nutritious than others? Some have more nutrients that are going to serve your body in a nutritious way, and some just have less nutrients that are going to serve your body in a not as nutritious way. And then I will say there is this other component of stress eating, emotional eating, and even binge eating. But like those things, there's usually an underlying root cause for that. So you can try what I just talked about today, and you can apply that to if you feel like you are a stress eater. But also there usually is some sort of something else going on there, and therapy is great for that. But then also just kind of tuning in and again, asking yourself those questions of where this could be stemming from. What are you thinking about when you go grab those foods? And so I'm not going to get into all of that right now. And actually, I was on the podcast Lose Your Cravings with Kisa Amaro. I had her on my podcast. And so I know that she kind of dives a lot more deeper into that. So if you're curious on that, definitely check her podcast out and the episodes that she has released. Put a little plug in there for her. And that's that. I hope that this was helpful. It's probably not the answer that a lot of people are looking for. Like, you think there's just like a black and white answer. Like, how do I just not stress eater? How do I just like not eat these foods? But really what it comes down to is mindset. Like I feel like I always say that, but it really does. And trying different things and giving yourself grace and giving yourself time, like being patient with this. It can take a while to like kind of overcome these things. And if you were like me, like kind of grew up around the fact that like we should eat low fat, low calorie, we got to be skinny, we got to be a certain size, we got to look a certain way, like all of those things. And if that's been pounded into you for years, maybe your entire life, just remember that it's gonna take maybe just as long, maybe not if it's your entire life, maybe not like the rest of your life, but it's going to take a pretty dang long time. It's not an overnight process. It's not even a week, month, even a year. Like it took me years to get to where I am today, literally years. Didn't think I'd ever get to this point, but I kept going and I kept working on myself and my mindset and my relationship with food and fitness and all the things. And here I am living life, having a great relationship with food. And I'm so grateful for that. And I know it can happen for you too, but it takes time and work. So if you resonated with this, if you feel like this kind of tugged at your heart and mind a little bit, you feel like you really connected to what I was saying, or you had maybe some aha moments, please share it with a friend, a family member. You could even take a screenshot, put it up on your stories and tag me, or simply just reach out. Let me know if this was helpful in any way. You can connect with me on Instagram. If we're not already connected, please connect on there. You can send me a message, say, hey, I listened to this episode. Here's what I liked. So that's at Sophia_Dawn41. That's SOPHIA_DAWN41. My podcast Instagram is Flow with the Grow Podcast. And I just share a lot about the episodes and kind of more so like inspirational type stuff. And if you have other questions around nutrition, either message me on Instagram or you can also email me at flowwiththegrowpodcast@gmail.com. I had to think about it for a second. But flowwiththegrowpodcast@gmail.com. Send me an email with any questions that you have or anything around nutrition, workouts, mindset, mental health, all the things, relationship with food. All right, I digress. There we go. That's that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm grateful for you. I love you. I appreciate you. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, week, weekend. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Flow with the Grow. I'll see you next week for your daily dose of positivity and growth.